The devil didn't come with fire and thunder. The devil came with a chessboard. He's in no hurry. He doesn't threaten. Just the quiet click of a wooden piece moved one square, and the faint smile of the one who moved it. And by the time you realize you're not playing for money, not for reputation, not even for your own pride, the game is already almost lost. Every black piece on this board isn't carved from wood. Every black piece is a human vice. Across from the devil sits a young man, his eyes fixed on the board, his hand pressed to his forehead, whether in despair or trying to hold his scattering thoughts together. And he's losing. This is the painting The Chess Players, painted by German artist Moritz Retzsch in 1831. A small canvas, oil on wood, about 13 by 15 inches. The composition was so successful it was copied all across Europe. Retzsch himself painted several versions, and so did his followers. Today we're looking at one of those authorial copies. The details come through more clearly in this one. And behind every detail in this composition, behind every piece on the board, stands a man who spent 15 years of his life living inside a single story. A story about a soul that can be lost in a wager. Retzsch was born in 1779 in Dresden. At 19 he entered the Dresden Academy of Art, and by 1824 he was already a professor there. But it wasn't his oil paintings that made him famous, it was his engravings. In the late 1810s, the publishing house Goethe commissioned him to create a series of 26 illustrations for Goethe's Faust. That work made Retzsch financially independent and permanently tied his name to the most famous German play about a deal with the devil. Goethe himself personally approved his drawings. After Faust came illustrations for Schiller, Shakespeare and Bürger. From Eastern 16 until the end of his life, more than 40 years, Retzsch kept returning to that same play again and again. By the time he sat down to paint The Chess Players in 1831, he had already been living inside that story for 15 years. And here's where something easy to miss happens. Nowhere in Goethe's Faust is there a scene of a chess game with Mephistopheles. Retzsch invented that scene himself. Like many artists of his generation, he wasn't captivated by the play itself, but by its central idea. Mephistopheles' wager with God that a man in search of truth can be lured off the righteous path. Retzsch took that idea, a bargain for a soul, and translated it into the coldest, most calculating game known to European culture. Instead of a verbal duel, a position on a board. Instead of a magical contract, the natural course of a game where every bad choice simply costs you a piece. As early as 1837, the British Saturday magazine published an analysis of the whole painting, and in 1861, chess player William Pitt was the first to match each vice to a specific chess piece. Their readings line up almost exactly. The scene unfolds in a crypt, where the chessboard rests directly on the lid of a sarcophagus, a game of life and death. On Satan's side, his own king is himself, wearing a hat with a rooster's feather. Beside him, the queen, Lust, a female figure with a bared breast pushed out ahead of all the other pieces. Sloth is a rook shaped like a pig's head, sitting on a tree stump. Wrath is the second rook, shaped like a turkey. One of his knights is Unbelief, a horned figure trampling a cross underfoot. The other fuses greed and envy into one, a hunched, bony figure gnawing at its own hand while clutching a chest to its side. The bishops. Pride, strutting with a peacock's tail and a fat purse. And deceit, one hand held to the chest as if in an oath, the other hiding a dagger behind its back. On the young man's side, everything mirrors it. His king is his own soul, with butterfly wings on its back. His queen is religion, a winged figure with her hand extended as a sign of protection. His rooks are hope with an anchor, and truth carrying a lit torch. His bishops are peace with an olive branch, and humility, head bowed in prayer. His knights are innocence, a child trustingly reaching out its hands to everyone. And love, two children embracing under a single star. And his pawns are tiny angels, prayers. The devil has already taken love, taken innocence, taken humility, and just now, only seconds ago, his clawed fingers seized peace. And what has the young man taken? Only wrath, and one doubt. And the whole story of the painting really comes down to a single line. If religion falls, the game is lost. Retzsch adds one more detail that's easy to overlook.
On the board, on Satan's side, a spider is crawling. Small, almost unnoticeable. In Christian symbolism, a spider spinning its deadly web represents the devil's snares laid out for the faithful. Satan isn't even in a hurry here. His triumph is already making its way toward the young man on 8 thin legs. Between the two players, behind the board, stands man's good genius, a sorrowful angel who has already watched this outcome play out many times before. Engravings of this scene spread quickly around the world. Copies hung in parlours from London to New York. Retzsch was nicknamed the Milton and Shakespeare of the Burin, a master who, with his engraving tool, reached the same heights Shakespeare reached in drama and Milton in his poem of the fallen angel. And here begins the most incredible part of this story. In the autumn of 1861, in Richmond, Virginia, a copy of the Chess Players hung on the wall in the home of Reverend Harrison. That evening, the great American chess genius Paul Morphy was a dinner guest. After dinner, Morphy walked up to the painting and stood before it for a long time. Then he turned to his host and said quietly, "I believe I could take the young man's game and win it." The guests didn't believe him. Someone flatly said that not even Morphy could save that position. Morphy replied, "Let's set up the pieces and try." They did. He took the white side, and according to several eyewitnesses, Reverend Harrison, Captain Barney and his wife, Morphy went on to beat every person in the room, one after another. The devil's position turned out to be a losing one. The story was published in the Columbia Chess Chronicle in 1888, and it set off a flood of letters. Skeptics demanded proof. Reverend Harrison personally confirmed every detail in a 2-page letter. After that, the tale of Morphy versus Mephistopheles became chess legend. But there's a skeptical side to this story too. The article in the Columbia Chess Chronicle appeared after Morphy himself had already died. He was in no position to confirm or deny the account, and to this day, no one has been able to precisely reconstruct that exact position. Modern chess engines, run on different reconstructions, give opposite verdicts. The English title the painting became known by, Checkmate, sounds like a final verdict. The game is over, nothing can be changed. The devil has won. But the original German title, Schachspieler, means something different. Simply the chess players. Not the loser, not the doomed. Players.
That's not just a linguistic difference, it's a philosophical one. The English title freezes the painting at the moment of final defeat. The German one leaves it open. It brings us back to a man who is still sitting at the board, still thinking, still able to move his hand. Look at the board again. The young man's king is still standing.
Among his pieces, religion, truth, and hope have not yet fallen. The game isn't over. Maybe that was Retzsch's real intention all along. Not to show a man inevitably losing to the devil, but to remind us that as long as the king is still standing, even on the lid of a sarcophagus, even under Satan's gaze, even as the spider is already crawling across the edge of the board, you always have one more move. Let me know in the comments which paintings you'd like to see in future episodes. See you next time.